Hi everyone, I'm Acurda Melchizedek and welcome back to the Global DNA Summit, activating our DNA for the next frontier of evolution. And today I am joined with, I'm sure everyone knows, Pixie Magenta. I mean, she is just a massive galactic light beam here on this planet, and just so grateful to have her here. And today's title of the show is going to be The Infinite Helix and DNA Activation for Starseeds. So I'm just going to do a very quick introduction of Pixie, because I mean, she really has had a tremendous life here with the work that she's doing. But I'm going to keep this relatively short. Pixie has been in communication with the collective group of light beings and higher aspects of herself since 1993. She lovingly refers to them as the white winged collective consciousness of nine, or the nine. Regular meditations and synchronicity within her life led to this awakening and connection. Magenta releases her messages from nine on video on YouTube. Since releasing her very first message in 2008, she has received over 70,000 subscribers. That is completely incredible. She's worked individually with clients all over the world and is author of The Masters of the Matrix, Divine Architecture and the Starseed Template, The Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame, the Black Box Program and the Rose Gold Flame as Antidote. And really your mission here is to help starseeds and light workers really with their enlightenment and ascension, and with joy and bliss and the magnificence that we came really to be. And it is such a pleasure to have you, Pixie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Acurda. Thank you for asking me to join you. It's a pleasure.
Well, you know, interestingly enough, like right after we had the lunar eclipse, I channeled a message that was almost exactly like the message that you channeled, and your message came in my feed, and it was almost verbatim. I mean, almost verbatim the message, and I was just like, wow, this is totally incredible, totally incredible. And so really, how did your awakening and I guess the nine really come into your life where you knew that you were going to be a channel for this group of light beings to come forth and really help transform humanity?
I didn't really know that on a conscious level until it started happening, really. Back in '93, when I first made contact with the nine, actually at that time it was a fifth dimensional version of the nine, if you like. The nine is sixth dimensional, moving into the seventh dimension, and that's just one model to explain their frequency. But I made contact with a fifth dimensional entity that I knew as a spirit guide, and at that time he was working with me and was teaching me how to remote view, and was showing me images and visuals of my future. And he showed me an image. So it didn't tell me and say, oh, you're going to be, you know, helping people or be part of this ascension, you know, in any leadership way or anything like that. He just showed me an image of myself where I was sat in front of a recording equipment, and I had headphones on and a microphone, and I was talking to people all over the world with headphones and a microphone on. And I knew that the majority of the people that I was speaking to were in America. At that time, I didn't have a headset. I don't even know if they made them back then. They probably did, but I didn't have one. I had some headphones that I would listen to my records on a record player or my cassette tapes. We didn't have computers, so I didn't understand how I could be speaking to people all over the world via a headset. It wasn't something I used at that time. And I wasn't sure. And part of me thought, oh, you know, am I doing some kind of, perhaps I'm on the radio, you know, that was the only thing I could really think of. So it was this image. They also showed me images of books, and I saw a book with my, well, I didn't have my name on, but I knew that I'd authored the book. But again, I didn't know how to interpret this visual. You know, I presumed that I'd be writing fiction, possibly romantic fiction or science fiction, because they were the kinds of genres I read. So them giving me information about what I was going to do, there was a knowing inside. There was a knowing. I remember receiving so much information and thinking, this is profound and quite mind-blowing, all this information about quantum realities. And I'd look around me and think, well, I don't have these conversations with anyone. Nobody else seems to be talking about this. And if I do have some kind of information that other people don't have access to, then why am I not in some way delivering this information to others? But then I thought, well, maybe everybody does have this information in some way, but they just don't talk about it. I just didn't know consciously where I was going. But what the White Spirit did say to me, at the time I was doing lots of theatre and drama. I'd grown up with a theatre family. My father was an opera singer. My mother was a dancer. So I'd done lots of theatre in my life, lots of amateur dramatics, a couple of professional things as well. So I'd grown up around the theatre. My plan was to go into the theatre. My plan was to be an actor. And White Spirit said to me, what you're going through right now, which was this amazing synchronicity that was happening in my life, what you're going through right now is a dress rehearsal for this shift, this ascension process. So I realized, oh, a dress rehearsal. So it wasn't actually the real thing, but I knew it was very similar, because a dress rehearsal has to be, you know, like a show. And they would let me know when it was showtime. And that was in 1993. White Spirit upgraded into this higher version of himself, into the White Wing Collective Consciousness of 9 around the year 2000. But it wasn't until 2008 that they said to me, you remember when we told you that what you were going through was a dress rehearsal and that we would let you know when it was showtime? Well, of course, it had been so many years, I'd kind of forgotten, not forgotten, but dismissed it like it was, you know, it hadn't happened. I expected to be told it was showtime within 6 months, not several years. And then they just casually said, well, it's now. And this was April 2008. And I said, now? What, you mean like today? And they said, well, in this time period, with 2012 being significant. And that's when they told me, and I'm saying, what do you want me to do? And they were explaining to me that I needed to tell everyone that I spoke to them, tell everyone what they were saying. And I'm saying, well, where are these people? Where do I find the people I'm supposed to tell? And, you know, basically the answer was, you tell everyone. Like, what? I'd kept this a secret, you see. I mean, not a secret, but only a select few of people knew I spoke to the 9 and that I channeled. Very few, you know, less than 10 people in my life, even family members didn't know. So it wasn't something I was in the habit of broadcasting. I did a few readings for people, but it was something that was personal to me, really, and for the close people that knew me. And all of a sudden they were telling me to tell everyone, and I wasn't sure how they wanted me to go about it. Was thinking maybe there's a group or a community of people somewhere locally that I'm supposed to connect with. A bit naive, really, when I had a computer sat next to me, and then they pointed to the computer and I thought, oh, the internet. Okay. So that's when I started Googling around to see if I could find other light workers and starseeds. And eventually I stumbled across YouTube, which I already knew about, but didn't realize you could use YouTube for this sort of thing. I thought you had to sort of, I don't know, create a cooking show or write a script and perform a play. I didn't realize until I found one other person actually who was bringing forward a stream of consciousness, and it was obvious that these were higher dimensional information. This was channeled messages. It was Ricer. His YouTube name was Ricer5. Since become very friendly with him and connected with him, and, you know, known him ever since 2008. But he had all these lovely swirly pictures, and I said to my then boyfriend, would you be able to make some visuals if I brought forward the information I'm getting from the 9? And he said yes. So that's when I uploaded the first video. And it wasn't really until then and that people started to subscribe and people started to write to me, email me and ask me questions. Only then did I kind of get the picture that I would be in some way you know, delivering messages on a global scale. But even then, I didn't really know. It wasn't until I uploaded the 888 video, which was the Lionsgate 888 portal in August of 2008. And before that video was uploaded, the Nine told me that this would reach more people, that this would be a significant energy video, a significant activation. And it was around that time. So around August of 2008 that I finally realized where I was going. But what the Nine have told me is it isn't really about so much planning and thinking, I want to do this, this is what I'm going to do, and I'll in 2 years I'll be doing this, and my 5-year plan is that. Yes, that comes into it, but that is a template. It is a sort of a loose skeleton framework, because if you're in true creativity, it happens in the moment, and it kind of happens before you've realized it's happening. You have to catch up with it. I know there is a saying that when you're ready, you don't need to look for the path will find you, and that's exactly how it is.
Yeah, the path just expands all around you, you know.
Exactly.
I think there's a reason they don't show us the enormity of it. You know?
Exactly.
Because that just sets in fear, and you're like, yes. You know, like it's,
oh yes.
They give you the next step, and then the next step, and then you find yourself, and you're like, wow, I had no idea it was going to be this enormous or this expansive, or like you would touch this many people, or, you know, ripple light in a massive way through the planet. And, you know, it's so great that you brought up 88, because this is actually going to launch on the Lionsgate this year. And,
wonderful.
you know, and this is the reason is because the Lionsgate is so powerful, especially with DNA, you know, and that, you know, and right now, another thing that came through, I just opened up a ceremony, a global container for the summit around Earth, and this blue container. And it was really brought forth the water element, is that like we really can start changing the entire planet through the water element. And that's, you know, directed to work with the water element right now, and to, you know, start seeing it structurally in the body through DNA and into the earth. And this will be how we program the universal unity consciousness, you know. And so this is why this summit is even birthed right now at this time with all these people, because they are the leaders, the way showers, the star seeds for this movement of, you know, this galactic universal unity consciousness that is coming in for us at the 88 Gateway.
It's wonderful, and there are so many people all tuned in, standing as a conduit in that alignment to like bringing down. The Nine have always spoken about this energy as language of light or light codes. They've recently started to talk more about how that is connected to the DNA field, and how what happens is when we bring those language of light codes down, the DNA responds to that light. Another way of interpreting that light would be sound, because it's one and the same thing from that higher perspective. And it responds, and the DNA begins to change its configuration into this sort of coded pictorial artistic movement. The DNA changes its structure into these geometric shapes that look like letters. The Nine talk about the flame letters. So this is something that is occurring big time with the Lionsgate. It's a new stream. We've had this higher dimensional stream, this language of light, this pillar of light. We've been moved for quite some time into an ability to do what's called bilocational thinking or bilocational consciousness, where we can hold two different concepts in our mind at the same time. And this opens up into drawing in two different streams simultaneously. So the starseeds have been working predominantly with a positive polarity stream. If you wanted to see that in a directional sense, it would be taking the overview and moving upwards, you know, metaphorically. It's all metaphor because there is no distance. So they'd be moving upwards and drawing down these codes. But now the negative polarity, which can be perceived or experienced as actually negative, or it can be perceived or experienced as simply an opposing force to the polarity of positive. It doesn't have to be negative. It depends how it's interpreted, depending on the individual and where they are in their own light quotient or dimensional sort of state. So really you're creating that pillar by drawing down energy from above and drawing up energy from below. And whilst that's been occurring for a while, the knowing that you are drawing in these two polarity streams and merging them, it's kind of like a galactic kundalini. So, you know, when we know we're drawing up kundalini from our own spine, and we're drawing up these two different polarities, the masculine and the feminine, or the magnetic and the electrical, or the antimatter and the matter, we're drawing them up the spine and creating this activation within the pineal gland, within the physical body. We're now being aware of the galactic body, and we're doing this on a galactic level. All the starseeds together are now creating this activation of galactic kundalini. I guess that's a good way of putting it. And this energy peaks on the Lion's Gate, the 8th of August, 2019.
I think that's absolutely beautiful, the way you articulated that. And, you know, for me, I've been saying this for a while. I believe that our involution is our soul light, our light into matter, and our evolution is our matter into light. And this is truly our ascension. This is our ascension, you know, and that is a beautiful representation of that. So thank you so much. And you know, my main focus is on DNA. And another reason for the Lion's Gate is I am from the Melchizedek order. So, you know, again, bringing eternal nature and infinite, right? So the number 8 is infinity. But speaking to that nature, and you know, I'm doing this through DNA right now. Like, let's talk about the helix, the infinite helix, and the configurations of the new DNA that are coming online, because there are so many templates that we can access through the pineal gland and through our DNA at this point.
Well, you know, I mentioned bilocational consciousness as sort of two streams, or holding two concepts within one's focus, or two knowings that are potentially opposing within the paradigm, and embracing both of them and seeing two perspectives. Bilocational consciousness. Sorry, did you want to say
No,
something?
I also see that as like the double helix, like the masculine and feminine part of the double helix as well.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. That would represent the double helix. And so the next step would be trilocational consciousness, which is holding three concepts within one's paradigm, and that would link to a triple helix. Then we would go beyond the triple helix, and you know, there are many different harmonics and codes and ways to measure what occurs between the triple helix and the infinite helix, but the 9 just call that, because it's just so vast, and there are so many ways of measuring these different levels and different harmonics. The 9 call this beyond the triple helix, but there are other models out there that different conduits will be picking up to measure that. The 9 haven't really gone into that, because they then move into the infinite helix, which is an omnipresent energy. It is the awareness of one's own infinite nature. So if we're going to liken that to a galactic kundalini, then we're moving into a galactic unification. But in order to get to the unification,
like a galactic trinity,
the galactic trinity, and then yes, absolutely, because the trinity is everything. I mean, when you have the trinity, you have the infinity, because that creates the activation. It's always 3 and derivatives of 3 in an infinite recurring presentation. It's just infinite 3s. In order to understand the unity, and many individuals, many starseeds understand and embrace unity, what the 9 teach is a sum of the steps in between. Well, they're all the steps just within this model. So these are compartmentalizations to get to the unification in order to understand it. So if you are very much a crystalline individual, very crystal, you'd go with the knowing and the being. You don't need to put all this into words. You can just say, I know about unity, I know about oneness, but the indigo aspect, and these aren't necessarily individual groups of people, they do present that way, but we each have the crystal aspect and the indigo aspect within us. And the indigo aspect is analytical and wanting to know the answers. Some of us don't want to just think, oh yeah, it's all there. I feel it. I am it. I don't need to explain it. I don't need to give it a label. I don't need to know how it works. I just need to know that it's there, and I'm in it, and I'm it. And that's wonderful and beautiful, and you need that. But the indigo energy will break that down and compartmentalize that. So the infinite helix is the infinite DNA structure. It's moved beyond the triple helix. It's moved into the infinite DNA structure, which is the reconstruction of the DNA to its original and rightful and organic human template, which is a 12 strand on a linear level. We would see it as a 12 strand, but it's actually recurring of 3 into these different configurations. So if you go quantum with that 12, you get to the 144. That's the 144 configuration. Now, many people think the 144 means that there are 144,000 starseeds on this planet, all here to awaken everyone. Well, can you imagine the restriction that we would have in an infinite structure if there were literally only 144,000? There are millions of individuals, and potentially into the billions as well. Potentially it's more than a billion, you know, potentially 2 billion or more. It's difficult to say because that number fluctuates depending on group consciousness. So the 144 is a code. So when you say I am a member of the 144,000, that simply means that you are in an infinite helix structure, and it isn't a linear process, so you move in and out of it. Once you get to what the 9 call the 5th strand, and all of this is metaphor because every strand of DNA is actually a entire infinite structure in itself. It's a monad or a monadic light structure in itself. So one DNA strand is all strands, but they work in a linear progression for us to. They don't work in a linear progression. We decode what they are in a linear progression because it's very difficult for us to see unity, 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 and understand what that means. So to break it down, strand 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, we can go in a linear movement in our understanding and our decoding of that. When we get to strand 5, this is equal to the 5th dimension, or yes, or in other models that might be known as 4th density. It's the same thing. So the 5th strand is equal to the 5th dimension, and once you get there, there are many harmonics within that 5th dimension or within that 5th strand activation, but the 9 break it down into 3, so you might have lower, middle, and higher. Once you get to the higher aspect of the 5th strand reconfiguration or the 5th dimension, you have a ceiling point, if you like, and that is where you will find time changes from linear to non-linear. So that is a stargate system. You go through a series of stargates. That again is a metaphor for your own configuration, and it just means that your light quotient, your energy, and the coordinates that you give off are able to transport you to certain places and times that are in an antimatter time matrix, which is outside of the body. Now, what normally happens, I'll say normally, in a non-ascending planetary humanity, if you like, if that planetary system has had that 12-strand configuration reduced down to 2, which we have, then those individuals will physically go through, become mortal. They are mortal because they're no longer immortal. So they will go through the death experience. And when they go through the death experience, they then move through stages of all of this memory reconstruction and rebuilding that monadic light template that they are. When a planetary humanity goes through an ascension experience, they don't need to go through the death experience in order to reconstruct that galactic memory and that source memory. It's done in the body, and the way that that is done is by reconstructing the DNA frequency back to its original form. So basically you hold all memory within a physical body that appears to be existing within a third dimensional reality. But what's actually happening is that physical body has become multidimensional, and someone who's fully third dimensional may not necessarily notice that. They will just see another ordinary human. But to those who are activated themselves, they will be able to tell, because it goes beyond the body, it goes into an energy system, and they're able to feel this. And that's what's growing, that what we might know as clairvoyant or psychic is simply the fact that we've raised our frequency, we've activated these levels that I'm talking about into this triple helix, beyond the triple helix and infinite helix, and we're able to sense and see and decode energy beyond matter, and we see that in other human beings as well. So that's what's happening, and it's really amazing and really fantastic that you are relating everything to the DNA, because that is what it is. It's all the DNA. We can call it universal, cosmic, galactic travel, astral travel, extraterrestrial contact, angelic frequency, Merkabah activation. All of it is explained by biology and what is occurring within the DNA, but it is a quantum biology. It's a quantum light field within the DNA that can't be seen fully in the third dimension through the instrumentation and microscopes and things that we have. There are some physicists that are seeing this light, but they don't know what it is, and unless that physicist is spiritually aware and has activated their own DNA, they will not be able to see what they are looking at. If you find a physicist that is trained as a physicist and also has activated their DNA to 5th strand level, they will be able to decode what they're seeing within the microscope. But even if they do, what they deliver to the masses, anyone in third density or third dimension will see that as pseudoscience. And it only falls on those that are receptive, who are of an equal light vibration. So it's like you've got two, well, multiple, but in many ways, two realities going on in this world. And those that are in this vibration that I'm speaking about, which will include everyone who watches your summit, on an energy level and on a level that is true to who they are invisible to the other people on this planet. They cannot be seen. Only part of them can be seen. And that's their third dimensional structure. The minute they start to present anything out of that third dimensional paradigm, they become invisible, and their words just scramble inside the brain of the other person, and they hear nothing. They just can't hear you. They don't understand what you're saying. Unless there's some receptivity within their DNA field, then just one word you might say, whether it's holistic or ascension or activation or geometry or emerald or stargate, whatever it is, that may then trigger them. And if it does, you will then get someone say, oh, that's interesting. You just mentioned, I don't know, King Neptune or white-winged fairies or whatever it is. It may then relate to their own awakening through their own dreams, their own knowings, their own, that they've been drawn to something since they were like 2 years old. They've constantly been drawn to this particular geometry or this particular artwork since they were 2, and they don't know why. And then they meet someone who then mentions it. So it's amazing how everything works, because when you get into that 5th strand activation, it becomes unified. So everything becomes a unified web.
Yeah.
You are connected with every other individual who's also activated as well. You're all connected together as a unity.
Yeah, I just want you to know that I have tears in my eyes right now, because I have never met another person who gets the enormity of working with DNA like you do. Like, I mean, you really get, and you see what I'm seeing, and like why this is my mission and why it's so important. And I'm like in tears right now.
Oh, well, that is so wonderful. But I can tell you there are many out there that do. You know, some people
they're coming forward.
They are, but some do not put themselves forward, and they've spoken to me privately, and I've had long conversations with individuals, and they absolutely get this amazingly. I mean, when I was still seeing clients, I don't see individual clients anymore, but when I would open up a photograph from the prospective client I was about to see, and I would look at their photo and be blasted with this diamond crystalline light oozing from their photograph. And I would think, why are they coming to see me? Because they don't need me, you know. And I soon realized why they were coming, and it was simply that they needed to be seen by someone else in order that they could see themselves. I was just acting as a mirror for them. But I saw so many people, and believe me, they absolutely get it, and those people will find their way to your summit. I
thank you so much. And going back to 5D, what I've been noticing with working with the 12 strands of DNA is like the first 4 strands are really like genetic, ancestral, past, present, right? And then 5D is like your higher self, that bridge strand of into unity consciousness. But it seems to be there's like some type of collective clearing that happens like right to step into the 5th strand, right? So that you can tap into the collective and witness this what we've created together, right? And to clear that before you step into like the unity consciousness. And when you step into the unity consciousness, it is like into this 5D, the 5th strand. It is literally like your field just opens up and you have access to so much more information. And then going through the higher strands, I mean, like you said, all your gifts really start coming online: light language, bilocation, teleportation, you know, all the stargates. And it's like those harmonics are really the keys. You know, I look at DNA, these strands of DNA, as being antennas, right? They're like the antennas and the code frequencies for all of these other things to come online. There's resonance and a harmonics to it, you know, and it's here for everybody.
Extremely well put. Everything you said is absolutely exactly how it is. Totally in alignment and accurate. One way the 9 used to explain this to me about this 5th strand journey from strand 1 to strand 5 was, if you imagine strand 1, if you can look at buildings and structures, if you like. So if you imagine strand 1 as a little sort of 2-bedroomed house, and then strand 2 would be you know, a 4-bedroomed house, and strand 3 would be like a castle. Strand 4 would then be a huge palace. But strand 5, you let go of the building and you have a landscape. You have a dimensional field that is yours. That's the crystal palace, if you want to give it a structure. This is where you have your own, what the 9 call a domain. You know, like we have domains online when we create a website and it's our website. We have that same thing in antimatter reality through the you know, activation of the DNA levels, or within the 5th dimension, if you want to call it that. It's the same thing.
As you're saying that, like I'm getting the picture representation of like a dodecahedron that keeps spiraling around. That is the DNA, and and you know, and the way that, like, you know, our heart frequency or the torsion field around us is really this ability to braid the DNA, right? The braiding of the DNA is at which the light can move through DNA, right? It's the seeded light that can move through your DNA and program your structure.
That's right. That's it. If you want to use the term braiding the DNA, if you look at the caduceus or imagine the sort of intertwining
galactic kundalini,
it's exactly the same thing. It does intertwine together. So with a braid, you've got 3 pieces, if you like. If you're creating a braid, or we call them plaiting here in the UK, that would be the Trinity braid. But if you imagine taking more pieces of hair and braiding that, like that film in Avatar where they take the pieces of hair
and they put them together.
This is a filament. It's all the filaments that are inside, the little tiny electrical, magnetic, quantum strands of light that they braiding is really good. But the 9 have shown me it's like a kind of a merge. They become one another, so we can view it as a braiding together and intertwining.
It's like a pulsing.
What's really happening is they are superimposing on one another and merging together and becoming the same thing, but then they can separate again. You know, so
it's like becoming a torus. You know, it's like it's the pulse of energy in and out and in and out. You know, it's an infinity, really.
That's it.
Beautiful. So recently I just had a where I spent a weekend in a future timeline, really, and you know, to me this felt very 6D, and I was engaged in a lot of light technology, light technology, and how we were using it for really our ascension process and creations in the 6D. And I was just curious what the 9 or yourself would have to say about, like, you know, the technology, the light technology that's really coming online, that's really here to serve us through our evolution and our ascension, and not take away and not distract us, but really here to serve, so that we can really have these holographic representations and create and know that we can create in these holographic forms.
Well, that's the way to go, because we're here as creative beings, especially when the DNA activates. And what you're seeing when you go to that place of geometry are the blueprints before matter. So these are the antimatter blueprints, the precursors to matter, and they form in response to our thoughts, our actions, our emotions, and those around us. And we have individual blueprints and collective blueprints for the whole planet. So what we can do is influence those blueprints, and what we can also do is create them. So that's standing as the creator. Now, the people who are coming to that place are those that have gone to that higher fifth dimensional, higher 5D stream, where they found the stargates, if you like. They've gone through to the next level, and they're seeing into the sixth dimension, what you call 6D. So that's the blueprints behind matter, and we can utilize those for our own lives. But ultimately, as a collective, we are becoming aware of that stream, that consciousness, so that we can create a new reality and thus a new dimension. The dimension, however, the reality, is a living intelligence itself. So it has already created itself, and we are just catching up with it and remembering how we created it. And that's the DNA strand merge. That's the merge. If you see the 6D and us as two separate things, and then you see us creating 6D, us creating the antimatter blueprints, pre-matter blueprints, and then you see those pre-matter blueprints in 6D as having already been created and connecting with us. That's the merge. That's where we merge with 5D or 6D. That's the DNA strands merging together. And that's why the 9 call this bilocational consciousness, trilocational consciousness, multi-locational consciousness, and then omnipresence, because it's a series of merging. Really, there is only one presence, and that's unity. But because we're in the third dimension and we're experiencing the illusion of separation, if you like, in a physical form, in an organic physical form, we have to go through stages to remember. It can become too overwhelming. It's like getting into a car and you've never driven before, and you turn the ignition on, you slap your foot on the accelerator, and you start doing 60 miles an hour, and you've never had a driving lesson. You will just crash your car. You have to learn to drive the car. You have to learn to put the car into gear. You have to learn to drive in first gear and second gear, and you have to learn how to turn around a corner. It's exactly the same.
I completely agree that all of these are just like separateness to show us where we're moving and merging into. And that's why I love in your bio that you include the 9 as being higher aspects of self, because there is no separation, and our guides are us.
Yes.
Our Archangel Michael is us.
Yes.
There's truly no separation from these.
Yeah.
We're just using these terms as a form of like creation, as a representation, but truly they are us.
Absolutely. And it's crazy when I hear some people say you don't need to have guides or angels or extraterrestrials to be spiritual. You just do it yourself. And I'm thinking, that again is an understanding that it's you and it's yourself, but a misunderstanding of what angels and guides and extraterrestrial presentations are. They are all us. So yes, we are doing it ourselves. And when we go without and look outside of ourselves for guidance, for structures, and for angels, we are actually going within.
I totally agree. And I also see this as being like a fractalization of all of us, and we're just tapping into a higher form of fractalization, but it's still the fractalization.
We are.
And
yes, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, so wonderful. I have so many other things to talk to you about. I would love to talk about the Grand Cosmic Merkabah, because that is the Lion's Gate. And I mean, it's the Merkabah is here. I mean, if it ever hadn't landed before, it has landed now.
Yes.
At this time. I mean, it's in my meditations. It's coming up all around me right now. It's here. The 8-8
Yes.
gateway has brought the cosmic galactic Merkabah, and I would just love to hear about that from you.
Absolutely. I mean, the recent astrological and cosmic alignments this year have been building this grand cosmic Merkabah, but in accordance with our consciousness as starseeds, as humanity. It's us that are building it. Again, it's a merge. And it is the same thing, really, as saying that we have become into fifth strand activation, creating our domain, our reality, our crystal palace within the fifth dimension, and holding that consciousness that the nine call going galactic. In order to go galactic, you have to have a transportation system. Now, that is your energy system, but each one of us, as we activate our own energy system into its braiding of the DNA, and the DNA goes to into its spin as it becomes that toroidal field, as we do that individually, when we are aware of that unification through the infinite helix, then we connect with others. We connect with others within this non-locational, outside of time, outside of space place, in this psychic spiritual unity, and we create this galactic toroidal field, a galactic spin, a galactic DNA braiding. And the nine call all the star seeds together that are activated, the consciousness of all the star seeds, the divine princess Aurora, because it is a feminine expression. That doesn't mean there isn't masculine as well. There is. The masculine expression is the Archangel Michael. There are many, many different models and different ways of presenting these structures, but that's just one that the nine use. So what you can say is, when we activate our Merkabah en masse, the divine princess Aurora has activated her Merkabah, and her Merkabah is the grand cosmic Merkabah. So these are metaphoric presentations that are also real, individualized,
like occurring in the morphogenetic field. Yeah, they are.
Yes, in the morphogenetic field. Exactly. They are pre-matter templates of an entire awakened humanity. They are pre-matter templates for an entire 144 DNA activated individuals. And that's the divine princess Aurora and Archangel Michael, or you could call Archangel Michael Arthur, King Arthur, or Jesus Christ. All of these different presentations of a Christ consciousness being has their intelligence field and their memory field within that structure. It's kind of like humanity is coming into freedom. So if you see these buildings, we've been in a 2-bedroom house, and then a 3-bedroom house, and then in a castle, and then in a palace, which we thought was amazing. And now we no longer need the building. What does that mean? We no longer have boundaries. We no longer have walls. We are outside in the big wide world, and everything is ours. Within that, there are boundaries. You can't step out and have no understanding of a boundary, even though it's a
sovereign freedom.
It is a sovereign freedom, and the boundary isn't really there. It's only there to give us structure within our infinity, and that's the boundary the nine call.
To create, you know, really, it's like the boundary, the container for create that we can create with our light.
Exactly, and the nine call that the event horizon.
Yes, yeah, the event horizon. I love that.
Yeah, which again is, you know, this talk about the event. It isn't an event, it's the event horizon, and it's the awareness and the understanding and the activation of the event horizon, which is within us individually and galactic. So a galactic event horizon, that's the boundary of the new dimension.
It's another merge. It's another
merge, and that is the grand cosmic Merkabah.
Yeah.
Same thing, yeah.
Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. And that's the rapture in the Bible. It's the same thing. Yeah, the drinking of the ambrosia, the discovery of Shambhala, the discovery of paradise, reaching nirvana. It's all the same thing.
Our eternal nature, you know,
exactly.
All that.
The eternal flame, you know, the cosmic twin flame. It's all the same thing. It's the higher aspects of the fifth strand activation. Once you get to fifth strand, there is no more linear counting. So when you're in fifth strand, you're in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th strand, as you choose to be, because it's not a ladder that you climb up. It's just
a frequency that you tap into.
Yeah, it's a continuous expansion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful, wonderful.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. It is amazing. Um, so one last thing, because that not too many people are talking about the Schumann resonance right now, and I think I think this is an important aspect, and I think more and more people are going to start talking about it, and I would love to hear what the nine have to say about the Schumann resonance.
Okay, so the nine call the Schumann resonance the crystal river. It was just named Schumann resonance after the man who discovered it, whose surname
Right.
was Schumann, but it's always been there since before that.
This is really where uh, like quantum physics science is really
Yeah,
being the bridge for us. It's a light language, and it's really starting
exactly.
to really come into the esoteric, and really we're working together now. This is the
Yeah.
light bridge, the rainbow bridge. This really is part of the rainbow bridge.
Absolutely, and it becomes another language. If somebody who was third dimensionally thinking, or even somebody who studies physics and science but is still within a third dimensional belief system, were to listen to us, they think we were completely crazy, or we'd invented some kind of weird language. You know, they think, what are they talking about? So yeah, the reason why we use these words is they are the nearest terminology that match the frequency, and as the frequency gets higher and higher and higher, it becomes more and more difficult to find a word within our language that is in alignment with that frequency, which is why we end up using terms like crystalline and crystal, and we use metaphors such as rivers and trees and emeralds and gemstones, because the language isn't there to hold that matches the frequency of that frequency, of that high energy, that language of light. It is a light language that's beyond words, so we are trying to use words. So the Schumann resonance, the nine refer to this as the crystal river. This is a river that runs through the planet. It runs through all planets, and it runs through the cosmos and the galactic reality. But it runs through us, and it runs through our bodies, and it moves up our bodies into the third eye chakra, the pineal gland, which becomes what the nine call your crystal river of light sight. So you use the energetic of the crystal river within you to create visionary experience, to see, and also to project. So that's how you utilize the pre-matter blueprints in the sixth dimension and create matter.
This is why working with the water element was so important.
The water element.
For this
because
series.
Water will conduct that crystal river, that Schumann resonance, more so than more physical matter. So if you have more, it must be structured crystalline water in your diet. So that would be probably something like natural fluids found within coconuts and
like
fruit.
natural spring water,
Natural spring water,
running water with,
it must be living water, what is called living water, that structured water which contains the energy of the crystal river. So the Schumann resonance is only a very small part of that, and the Schumann resonance is, you know, the heartbeat of the earth. It's measuring the frequency of the earth, but really this is more than the heartbeat. This is the pumping of the blood of the earth. But that blood is light. It is different formations of light, and we have this within our bodies. That's why we can't live without our mother. Our mother is matter, and that is the earth. And
it's like a breathing into the crystalline matrix here, the crystalline morphogenetic field here. It's like the breath in and out, the heartbeat in and out, the pump of the blood in and out in our grid system.
And that is pure thought, and that's gravity, and all the other known laws of physics that we have in this reality. It's all created by the crystal river, and humans have been cut off from this deliberately. They have been cut off from this. They have been only getting a small percentage of that flow. Once you start to raise in frequency and activate the DNA and awaken the consciousness, and you become aware of the flow, you take in more and more and more, and you detox on a physical, energetic, spiritual levels. I'm not just talking physically and with foods and things. I'm talking about traumas and memories and going beyond this life into past life, future life, etc., etc. You detoxify, and you do this through the Schumann resonance, the crystal river. You utilize that to flow through you, and you draw that down from the cosmos as well. In fact, that's what we are. We're conductors of that crystal river frequency, that crystalline frequency, which is actually, if you want to give it a name, it's, you know, if you want to label it as a substance or as a chemical or as something, it would be plasma.
Plasma, yeah. And we have the plasma body, the rainbow body. I mean, it's no coincidence that we have, you know, thousands of rainbow crystals in our pineal gland.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
Water, and it's
if they're healthy and activated. Some people, they're dormant and, you know, they're not being used. But in ascending starseeds, through thought, through art, through music, through creativity, through love, through connection, through the memory system, DNA activation, those crystals are created in the pineal gland. They wake up, they begin to reproduce because they are living cells, and they become more and more abundant and more powerful. And they're not just that which you use to see into antimatter, they are also that which you use to project into antimatter. That's how you create your reality. That's the key to the law of magnetic attraction. Even that is a sort of a watered down version of what it really is. It's simply the fact that humans are stargates themselves. They are able to do these things. It's just that we live in a physical matter reality, so everything's a bit slower. If we want to manifest, I don't know, a trip abroad, it might take 6 months before we've actually manifested it, or it might take 3 weeks or a day or whatever. But in truth, everything is instantaneous. The minute you think it's happened, it's just that the linear time has to catch up with it. You have to have the consciousness and the knowing, and that's your intentional focus. If you don't have intentional focus when you're using this, then that projection will just dissipate, and that's because that crystalline rainbow of crystals within the pineal gland is not projecting far enough. As I said, I used the analogy of driving a car. If you try to drive too fast, you'll burn it out. If you never get in your car, you won't ever learn to drive. But you get in, and at a measured pace, you learn to drive, and you get more and more competent until eventually the vehicle and yourself merge together. You don't think about it. You are the car, and off you go. That's the Merkabah.
Yes. Wonderful. Oh, I just adore you. I mean, just absolutely adore and love you. Thank you so much.
Oh, bless you. Thank you.
Would you like to tell us about your free gift that you're offering this community that comes forth?
So the free gift is a selection of meditations, of my meditations. Each one has a specific intentional goal to it, but they are all very connected to everything we've been talking about: the activation of the DNA, the activation of the memory, using visuals, working with the elementals, very fifth dimensional. You will meet beings within the meditations that exist and have consciousness and have intelligence. You may work with structures that are also intelligent structures. So you're working with the fifth dimension and the sixth dimension. So the higher Stargate sort of ceiling aspect to that fifth strand activation. That's where all those meditations will take you, but they will only take you there in accordance with where you are. So don't worry, you're not going to do a meditation and spin out into burnout and get in your car and speed off. You will get what you are ready to get from the meditation. It will work for you at the level that you are at. And you can do the same meditation 6 months later and a year later, and you will have a different result, because the meditation is simply an aligned mirror to you. So that's the free gift.
Thank you so much, Pixie. Thank you so much. It has just been such an honor to be in your energy and co-create with you, and to be in this was really spectacular, and I would love to do more stuff with you. I mean, just the energy that we created was really spectacular, and I thank you so much.
Yeah, it's amazing. Can you actually feel when you speak to someone that is of like vibration, you feel that energetic merge.
Oh yeah. My whole room right now
Yeah.
is like all like a big ball of light right now. I
And
mean,
individuals who listen to us will feel it too.
yeah.
It's just, it has no location, you know? The minute you connect with it, it's in you.
Yeah. Truly exceptional. I thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Honored to be part of your summit. Thank you for asking me.
Oh, thank you so much. I seriously, the honor is all mine. Oh, what a joy it is to know that you're here on this earth with us. For me, truly.
Oh, bless you, you too. And I say the same to everyone, especially people who are conscious and are working like us to do what we're doing, you know.
Yes.
Amazing. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and please access Pixie's free gifts. I know I am. They sound absolutely amazing. So, okay. Bye everyone. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much, Pixie. This was truly
Thank
magnificent.
you. Was
Yeah.
the sound okay and everything?
Oh my gosh, everything was absolutely perfect.
Oh,
Perfect.
that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for asking me. It was really nice. And the 9 came forward this morning, you know, well, early this morning when I was kind of half asleep, with more information about these streams that are coming in with the Lion's Gate. So I kind of brought that information forward today. So it was just, and I didn't know that would happen. So it was perfect divine timing that I was doing the interview with you today. So
Yeah. I felt them this morning too. I mean, I felt them all come in, and I knew that we were going to talking about the Lion's Gate, and I know I set a very powerful intention yesterday at the ocean for the container, and there's a lot of magnificence coming through right now.
yeah, and
So
it's amazing, the water. Have you heard of Masuro Emoto?
yes, yes,
Yeah, wonderful work. And of course,
wonderful
that's in
work.
our pineal gland. That's how the crystals do the work, is through the crystalline fluid. You know, so the ocean is and water is huge part of that.
Mm-hmm.
It is the conductor, the electrical conductor
Yes,
for what we're doing. So
yes.
it is amazing how much it's growing, how much it's expanding, and what's the significance of what's happening this year with the Lion's Gate. I mean, the energy is just, it's almost like you're permanently awake, permanently activated all the time, and having to find that grounding, and it's fun because you get to a point where you can
Mm-hmm.
ground, and you can go out and have an evening with loads of 3D people, and be present and be with them without shutting yourself down, and still remain open and
Yeah.
3D, and it's a
it,
fun
it's because
journey.
it's becoming like a fun alchemy.
Yeah,
It's like what do I have to alchemize to be this or that, or to create
yes,
this or that? And you're pulling in the elements, and you're pulling in the geometries, and you're pulling in the light. It's becoming
yeah.
this process of alchemy, and it's really fun.
It's
you
really,
know?
really fun. And for anyone who doubts, and often it's easy to think, oh, all of this, is it real? Is it just people saying these things? Is it all in their imagination? But it's not possible for that many people to have the same imaginations and it not be real, because when everyone has the same imaginations, that's what creates it. So, anyone who has doubts only has to look at the way ideas and creativity are made, and it's leaving behind the old now, and the people in the old paradigm are frustrated and lost because they don't have that, because that is the match to the new frequency, and
Yeah.
those that don't want this to happen are gosh, I mean, so behind because it's happened.
Yeah,
It's not as if
that's what's
it's
so
already
great about
happened, can't be
right
stopped.
now is we're just, we're not even trying to change the old paradigm
No,
stuff.
it's
Like
done.
we're just completely creating something new.
Yeah,
I'm not going to fix that. Like, nope, we're just
no,
going to completely come over here, create
exactly.
Litecoins, like all of that stuff. Like, we're just going to create the
Yeah,
whole new.
exactly. And then it'll fix itself. It's not pretty to watch it fixing itself, but it is fixing itself, and it's done, and there's nothing that can change it, nothing that can stop it.
Yeah.
It's kind of here already.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Such a pleasure.
Yes, you too. Lots of love.
Lots of love to you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.